Why they did that? Because they wanted to secure the body underground. Because earlier stage, they noticed that if they have a normal burial, after they leave the site, animals, mainly dogs, wild dogs, in the desert, they would dig and eat the fresh body. Yeah? So this is one of this why they mummify the body, not to be attractive, to be eaten by animals. And also they try to secure the entrance to the shaft so they can keep the body or the mummy for the journey to the afterlife. So they build a mastaba. This is a cross section of the mastaba. Here is the mastaba. And then the mastaba was developed to be what we call today pyramid. And when you go to Saqqara, you can see what people are calling today the step pyramid, which I don't like to call it a step pyramid. I like to call it the step mastaba, because it was not a pyramid yet. Yeah, it was a mastaba, and then it was developed, it was enlarged, and then they added another step, 4 steps, and then they added 2 steps. You can see every time they are enlarging the mastaba. This is the famous step pyramid at Saqqara, which is about like 20 or 25 kilometers from here, from Mahdi. Yeah? And then became, after that, the form of the pyramid we know, which was developed from the step mastaba or the step pyramid of Saqqara. Building tombs went parallel to building temples. The tombs were the houses of eternity, the temples were the houses of gods. The tombs where we will survive for the afterlife, the pyramids and the temples where the gods live, the houses of gods. So this is, by the way, the temple of Queen Hatshepsut.
It's a beautiful one.
It's a beautiful one. And by the way, maybe you all know that in Egypt we had 2 out of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, or the ancient wonders of the world. Yeah? One of them is the Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest of all. And the second one was the lighthouse of Alexandria, which was built by Ptolemy II. But matter of fact, all the 7 wonders are gone except the Great Pyramid of Giza. So it's the only surviving one. To be honest, we could or we should add at least 3 more sites to those 7 wonders to make them 10 easily. And correct me if I'm mistaken. One of them is this temple of Queen Hatshepsut, which is a rock-cut temple, amazing site, built by one of the most genius architects of the history of mankind, called Senimut. This mountain is the same mountain mostly in the tombs of the Valley of the Kings. The Valley of the Kings is on the other side of the same mountain. They were taking this temple from one side, taking the tomb of Queen Hatshepsut in the Valley of the Kings from the other side, having like 2 tunnels, but one higher than the other, to end up at the end not to be linked, but because the sanctuary or the holy of the holies of the temple should be above or higher than the burial chamber of the Queen Hatshepsut. So the god Amun-Ra will be always watching over the Queen Hatshepsut and protecting her for the afterlife. When you think of something like this, taking those tunnels in this mountain, like 3,400 years ago, with no X-ray, with no satellite images, with no modern equipments for digging or for building and so on, and that was achieved by Senimut 1,400 BC. Amazing. This is one side. The other side is what? Is Abu Simbel. Definitely. If we talk about this one as one of the wonders, so Abu Simbel definitely must be one of the wonders of the world. Yeah? By or for Ramesses II and his beloved wife Nefertari. What is Karnak? The great temple of Karnak in the city of Luxor. And excuse me, I'm not counting Karnak as one of the wonders of the world. I only count part of Karnak. Only part of Karnak, not the whole Karnak. Only part of Karnak, which is the great hypostyle hall. The great hall of columns, with 134 columns, were once before originally supporting a heavy ceiling or roof built of heavy stone as well. 134 columns built by Seti I and his son Ramesses. So only part of Karnak can make it as one of the wonders of God. So building tombs. This is from Karnak, from Luxor. So what I mentioned is at the beginning of forming the Egyptian civilization. Yeah? At the beginning. What happened? We'll go back to the map. We'll go back to the map. Here you can see it's written Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt. Okay? Upper Egypt is in the south, Lower Egypt is in the north. Why lower and upper? By the way, the Nile runs from south to north. So maybe you can say it's the wrong way, yeah? The Nile is going the wrong way. Most rivers are running the other way around, yeah? So the Nile is running from south to north, heading to the Mediterranean. So the land of the south is higher or upper than the land of the north. Yeah, that's why we call it now Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Okay. So when they started forming dwellings around the River Nile, in the Nile Valley, Egypt became divided into two lands, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Each one of the two lands had a king wearing a different crown and had a flag, yeah, and also goddess protecting their land. So Upper Egypt, the king was wearing the white crown. Lower Egypt, the king is wearing the red crown. Even if we don't see the colors, we can tell that they are different. Am I right? They are totally different. Okay, but maybe after this lecture or this session, if I ask you outside which was the crown of Upper Egypt, which was the crown of Lower Egypt, you might get confused. But if I tell you why it was white for Upper Egypt, why it was red for Lower Egypt, you will never forget. In Upper Egypt, it's hotter than Lower Egypt. And it's drier. And it doesn't rain. I never say never, but I can say it never rains. Yeah? If it rains like once every 10 years, it never rains. I wouldn't count it. So it's mostly desert. Mostly desert. If you just ignore the let's say half a mile on each side of the River Nile as green, and then you go further, you find yourself in the eastern or the western desert, it's mainly desert. So the main color, popular color in Upper Egypt, which is the color you see everywhere you go, is the color of the sand, which is light yellow or white. So they use the white color for the crown. Agree? For Lower Egypt, it's fertile land, it's the delta. So the color of the soil is reddish or brownish because of the Nile silt. So they use the red color for the crown. Makes sense? Everything happened for a reason in ancient Egypt. Yeah? So the two crowns. The Upper Egyptians and the Lower Egyptians were fighting each other. When was that? That was around 5000 BC, when the two lands were formed. Now it's kind of civilization. Not very much like what we know or what we will know later, but it's kind of civilization forming, government, king, inheritance of the throne and so on. They were fighting each other. Why fighting, guys? We'll see why they were fighting. So here, this is the map. Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt, red and white. Each one of the two kingdoms, Upper and Lower Egypt, had a protecting goddess. So Nekhbet, the goddess of Upper Egypt, Wadjet, the goddess of Lower Egypt. Here we have also to know why. Why, not to be confused. You know the birds are migrating from Europe to Africa, going through Egypt, especially in the winter. Yeah? Looking for the warm weather. And Upper Egypt still, until today, until this very minute, still cleaner and less polluted than Lower Egypt. So when you go to Aswan today, I And you read in the guidebooks, the best place for bird watching, if you are a bird watcher, the best place, no doubt, Aswan. Go to Aswan. The best place for bird watching is Aswan. Why? Because it's cleaner, it's less polluted, and it's warm. Especially when you go to Aswan in around December, January, and so on. Amazing birds, and it will be one of your best bird watching trip ever, if you are into bird watching. So the ancient Egyptians were looking at all these birds, and they've chosen one of them, the female eagle, the vulture, to be the protecting goddess of Upper Egypt. High in the sky from Upper Egypt. Okay, in Lower Egypt, what do we have? We have the marshes of the delta. What do you get in the marshes? Snakes. Yeah? So they have chosen the strongest and the most deadly snake, which is the cobra, to be the protecting goddess of Lower Egypt. So we have Nekhbet and Wadjet, yeah, of Upper and Lower Egypt. What else? The flag. We need a flag for our country. So in Upper Egypt, because it's hot climate, they grow the lotus flower, the lily, the water lily, the Nile lily, or the lotus. This is the lotus. In Lower Egypt, they grow papyrus. So when you have the lotus flower carved or drawn on the walls of tombs or temples or in papyrus or whatever, it means Upper Egypt. When you have the lotus, the papyrus, it's Lower Egypt. You know what? It's like in the European community today. When you buy something and you have the instructions in different languages. When you have the British flag, so the following instruction will be in English. The French flag, it's in French. The German flag, it's in German, and so on. So the same thing, when you have the lotus, what comes after the lotus will be description of Upper Egypt. What comes after the papyrus will be description of Lower Egypt. So we end up by having the two lands, two kings, two crowns, two protecting goddesses, two flags. What do we expect? Civil war. Upper and Lower Egyptians. They believed deep inside that Egypt should be united. You should have two kings, you should have only one king. The Nile is the main unity of the two lands, and there should be only one land, one king. 2,000 years of civil war, from 5,000 BC until 3,000 BC, when they managed to have the land united. Upper and Lower Egypt. When they became united, the king of Upper Egypt invaded the north, and he said, the north used to be my enemies, but not anymore. Now they are my people. So I will move the capital to the north, Memphis. Yeah? I will use what crown? Use my own crown, the white crown, or the red crown of my enemies? No. We are now one land. We are now united. So I have to make both of them happy by joining the two crowns, placing the white crown inside the red, forming what will be known as the double crown, and the land of Egypt started to be called the Sematawi. What does it mean, Sematawi? Sematawi means the two lands. And the king was never known as the king of Egypt or the Egyptian king. What was his title then? The king of the kingdom of the United Kingdom of Upper and Lower Egypt. That was the official title. The king of the United Kingdom of Upper and Lower Egypt. Very much like the United Kingdom today. Yeah. When you talk to somebody, say, are you English? No, I'm not English. I'm Scottish. Yeah? I'm Irish. I'm Welsh. Yeah? But at the end of the day, you're all under the umbrella of the United Kingdom. So the same thing in Egypt. There was no Lower Egyptian, no Upper Egyptian. We are all citizens of the United Kingdom of Upper and Lower Egypt. Yeah? The king will be wearing the crown of the United Kingdom. The king will be also known as the Lord of the two lands, or the Lord of the two ladies. Why do we call them the two ladies? Because they used to have female form. They were goddesses. Yeah? So here you can see them. This is Wadjet, the cobra, and Nekhbet, the vulture. And here you can see, this is like a funny scene, but This is the original from the temple of Komombo in the south of Egypt. You can see the lady here wearing the white crown, the red crown, without the color we know it from the shape, and that's the white crown. When he created the double crown, by the way, funny thing is, when he created the double crown, you can see the upper half is white for Upper Egypt, and the lower half is red for Lower Egypt, which is also a hidden message that the upper land, or the Upper Egypt, has the upper hand. Lower Egyptian, always remember that. Yeah? So, if we talk about I'm just trying to summarize and finish the lecture. I don't want to give you more than this. But if we talk about the history, I would like to give you like a little summary of the history of Egypt. Yeah? When you read, if we have like 10 guidebooks today, and you open these guidebooks, we read the beginning of the Egyptian history, it will tell you 3040 BC in one book. Another book, 2997 BC. In a third book, 990, whatever. Yeah? Let's say it is 3000 BC. 3000 BC. Roughly. Yeah? Easy number to remember. And it's not far from all what is written in all the guidebooks, all the history books. 3000 BC. What happened 3000 BC? Egypt became united, as we explained. Yeah? And also the language, which would be known later on as hieroglyphics, was established by the same time. So we start having what we call a written history of Egypt. The written history of Egypt. Before 3000 BC, we have history, we have monuments, but we don't know much about it. Why? Because it doesn't have any description on it. So we don't know the name of the king, we don't know where it was built and what for, but starting from 3000 BC, it's like documented monuments. So it's the written history of Egypt, what we call the pharaonic Egypt. Why? Because it comes from the word Pharaoh. Where did it come from, Pharaoh? Pharaoh originally in the ancient language was Bir'u, Pharaoh, Pharaon, Pharaoh. What does it mean, Bir'u? Bir'u means the big house or the big palace. Indication of the king who lives there, or the person who lives there is the king of Egypt. The pharaohs ruled Egypt from 3000 BC until Egypt was invaded by Alexander the Great. When was that? Exactly in the year 331 BC. Easy to remember, 300. When we talk about 7,000 years of civilization, it's not a big deal to drop like 30 years. Yeah? So 300 BC is what we call Greek or Ptolemaic Egypt. Ptolemaic. Yeah? Ptolemy is the title given to the Greek kings who ruled Egypt. Yeah? Okay, 300 BC. By the end of that Ptolemaic family, Egypt was ruled by a queen. Do you know her name? Cleopatra. Thank you very much. And as we said, the seventh. She was married to Caesar, and she had a love story with Mark Antony later on. And the Romans came, invaded Egypt, and that was the end of the Greek or the Ptolemaic Egypt and the beginning of Roman Egypt. When was that exactly? In the year 34 BC. 34 BC. Make it 30. So we have 3,000. 330 BC. Yeah? 30 BC. What does BC stands for? I'll tell you something funny. I was talking to some Americans before, I was telling them about this. I said, excuse me, Hisham, what does it mean BC? What does it stand for? Before Columbus? So BC, which means that something will happen soon after that. The birth of Jesus, and Egypt will turn gradually to a Christian country. Yeah? Christianity was introduced to Egypt officially by St. Mark in the year 61 AD. Make it 60, double the number 3. Yeah? 60 AD. And it will take almost 3 centuries for Egypt to become a Christian country, or what we call Coptic Egypt. I'm not going into details of any of those. Coptic Egypt is Coptic, the word Copt, yeah, means Egypt. Yeah, and the word Coptic, by the way, was given to the Egyptians by the Arabs when they came here later on in the year 641 AD, make it 600, also again double the number 3, 600. When they came here and they found all the Egyptians, or most of them, practicing Christianity, they were calling the Egyptians, like when you go to Britain and say Brits, yeah? Or when you call the Americans Yankees, or when you call Germans, or Saudis, and so on. So they were calling the Egyptians Copts. Why Copts? Because Copts formed originally from the word Gyptus, Egypt. So they were calling them Egyptians, yeah, Copts. But matter of fact, those Egyptians or the Copts, they were practicing Christianity. So later on, those who converted to Islam became Muslims. Those who remained Christians kept the original title Copts. That's why every Copt is a Christian, yeah, but not every Christian is a Copt, because the Copts are the Egyptian Christians. This is what you read in most of the books, but let me correct it. All Egyptians here today and everywhere in Egypt are Copts. Muslims or Christians, we are Copts. We are all Copts. Yeah? This is the idea we are trying now to explain to the people who live in Egypt today, that we are all Copts. Muslims or Christians, because we are all Egyptians. Yeah? But anyway, when you read this terminology, Coptic Egypt means the Christian era of the Egyptian history, which started around 380. Of course, we will talk more about Coptic Egypt and the building of monasteries, which was started and evolved in Egypt, the beginning of Christianity, around the 1st and the 2nd century AD, and introduced to Christianity worldwide, the monastic life, which was created and developed here in Egypt, and so on. So, 3,330 BC, and then 60, 300, 680. This is very briefly the history of Egypt. Briefly. Those are the major periods. So when we go into, or under each title of them, we have Old Kingdom, New Kingdom, and Middle Kingdom, and Pharaonic Egypt, and so on. So there are more details in each period of history. The question is, which will be the last thing I'll finish my lecture with, how do we study Egyptology? How do I know about that subject and standing now in front of you telling you about the history of Egypt? How do we study it? We have mainly three sources. All what was left by the ancient Egyptians, documents either on papyrus or drawings, statues, tombs, everything. Yeah? And the Greek historians and the early travelers to Egypt who wrote about Egypt, like Herodotus, who came to Egypt 500 BC and wrote about the building of the pyramids and describing life in Egypt and so on. Okay? Plutarchus and many others. And then the Bible, the Quran, all the holy books in general, which mentioned some stories took place in Egypt, like Moses and the Exodus, mentioned in the Bible, or let's say the Old Testament and the Quran, like the story of Joseph, the man of the coat of many colors, yeah, and the coming of the Israelites, mentioned in the Bible and also in the Quran. So should be source of knowledge to us. To be quite honest, with all my respect to the holy books, they are not history books. They mention those stories, let's say, the story of Moses, not to tell us about the history of Moses, but to learn the morals of the story, the good and the bad and whatever. Yeah. So that's why the Quran or the Bible never mentioned the name of the Pharaoh. Never mentioned it. Some people say, it was Ramesses II, and then someone from around the corner said, no, it was not Ramesses II. Why do you say Ramesses II? Because of 1, 2, 3, 4. Why do you say he's not Ramesses II? Because of 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it was Tutmosis. No, he was not Tutmosis. So he was Amenhotep. No, he was not Amenhotep. There's always a debate about who's the Pharaoh of Moses or the Pharaoh of the Exodus, because it never mentioned in the holy books